She couldn't breathe. The burlap scratched her face. Her wrists burned from the rope. The world outside the sack was muffled, distant, like drowning in dirt and darkness. Clara Jennings had stopped screaming hours ago, maybe days. Time had no meaning anymore. All she knew was cold and fear. Then suddenly the movement stopped. Rough hands grabbed the sack. She was lifted, carried, then dropped. Hard, her head hit something wooden. Pain exploded behind her eyes. Voices, men laughing, boots crunching gravel. Leave her. She's more trouble than she's worth. Boss said to dump her where no one looks. This'll do. Middle of nowhere. Coyotes'll finish the job. More laughter, then silence. Clara tried to move, but her body wouldn't obey. She was too weak, too broken. The cold seeped deeper. Her breath came shallow, ragged. This is how I die, she thought. Alone, in a sack, like trash. But then a sound. Footsteps, slow, deliberate. A man's voice, low and rough. What the hell? The sack shifted. Light pierced through the weave. Clara flinched. Easy now, the voice said. I ain't gonna hurt you. Hands worked at the rope. Not rough. Careful. The sack opened. Cold air hit her face like a slap. She gasped, sucking in breath after breath. Her lungs burned. A man knelt beside her. Older, weathered face, gray at the temples, eyes like stone but not cruel. He didn't ask questions, didn't demand answers. He just lifted her. Gently, like she was made of glass. Come on, he murmured. Let's get you inside. Elias Turner's cabin sat at the edge of the valley, tucked between pine trees and silence. No neighbors, no noise, just wind and solitude. He'd chosen this place for a reason. People asked too many questions, made too many assumptions. Out here he could be alone with his ghosts. Until tonight. He laid the girl on the cot near the fire. Her dress was torn, filthy. Blood crusted her hairline. Her wrists were raw, rope burned. Elias frowned. He'd seen plenty of cruelty in his life. Too much. But this was something darker. He fetched water from the basin, poured it into a tin cup, knelt beside her. Here, he said, holding the cup to her lips. Drink. She flinched, eyes wild, terrified. I ain't gonna hurt you, he repeated, softer this time. Her lips trembled. Then slowly she drank, a sip, then another. Water spilled down her chin. She choked, coughed. Elias pulled the cup back. Easy, not too fast. She looked at him then. Really looked. Her eyes were green, pale green like new grass after rain, but there was no life in them, only fear. Who did this to you? Elias asked. She didn't answer. Maybe she couldn't. He stood, grabbed a blanket from the chest and draped it over her shoulders. You're safe here, he said. Whatever happened, whoever's after you, they ain't getting through me. Still no response. Elias sighed. He wasn't good with words. Never had been. But he knew what it looked like when someone had given up. And this girl, she was halfway to gone. Clara woke to the smell of wood smoke and coffee. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Forgot everything. Then memory crashed back. The wagon, the hands grabbing her, the sack, the darkness. She bolted upright, heart pounding. Whoa, easy, a voice said. The man, the one who'd found her. He sat by the fire, stirring something in a pot. He didn't look at her, didn't crowd her. Clara's chest heaved. She scanned the room. One door, one window. No locks on the inside. Trapped. You hungry? The man asked, still not looking. She didn't answer. He ladled something into a bowl, set it on the floor near her. Not too close, just within reach. Rabbit stew, he said. Ain't much, but it'll fill you. Clara stared at the bowl. Her stomach twisted with hunger, but she couldn't move. What if it's poisoned? What if he's just like the others? The man stood, walked to the door and stepped outside without a word. The door stayed open. Clara blinked. Confused. Why would he leave the door open? She waited, listening, but he didn't come back. Slowly she reached for the bowl. Her hands shook so badly she almost dropped it. The stew was warm, real. She ate. Fast. Too fast. Her stomach cramped, but she didn't stop. When the bowl was empty, she looked toward the open door. The man stood outside, axe in hand, splitting wood, his back to her. He wasn't watching, wasn't guarding. She could run. But where? She had no shoes, no coat, no idea where she was. And the cold out there? It would kill her faster than any man. So she stayed. 3 days passed. Elias didn't ask questions, didn't push. He fed her, gave her space, let her sleep by the fire while he took the floor near the door. Every morning he left the door open. Every morning she stayed. On the 4th day she finally spoke. Why? Elias looked up from mending a bridle. Why what? Why help me? He shrugged. Seemed like the right thing to do. You don't even know me. Don't need to. Clara's jaw tightened. I could be dangerous. Elias glanced at her. For the first time, something like a smile tugged at his mouth. You could be, he agreed. But you ain't. She looked away. How do you know? Because dangerous people don't shake when they eat. Silence fell. Then Clara whispered, they'll come looking for me. Elias set down the bridle. Who? The men who took me. They don't let go easy. Then they'll have to go through me first. Clara stared at him. You don't know what they're capable of. Elias stood, walked to the mantel and pulled down a rifle. He checked the chamber, loaded, ready. Neither do they, he said quietly. For the first time in weeks, Clara felt something other than fear. She felt hope. That night, as the fire crackled low, Clara finally told him. My name is Clara, she said. Clara Jennings. Elias nodded. Elias Turner. They took me from a stagecoach, she continued, voice trembling. 3 of them. Said I'd fetch a good price in the mining camps. Elias's jaw clenched. How long? 6 weeks. Maybe more. They kept us in a cellar, tied up, in the dark. She pulled the blanket tighter. I tried to escape once. They beat me, said next time, they'd kill me slow. Elias said nothing, but his knuckles turned white around the rifle. I thought I was dead, Clara whispered. When they put me in that sack, I thought it was over. It ain't over, Elias said. You're still here, still breathing, that's what matters. Clara looked at him. Why do you care? Elias stared into the fire. Because I know what it's like to be left for dead, and I know what it means when someone don't. He didn't explain, didn't elaborate. But Clara understood. They were both survivors. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. The days blurred together like watercolor on wet paper. Clara woke each morning to the sound of Elias chopping wood. The rhythmic thud of the axe against oak became her alarm, her assurance that she was still alive, still safe. She didn't speak much. Neither did he. But slowly, carefully, she began to move through the cabin like it was hers. She washed the dishes, swept the floor, folded the blankets. Small things, quiet things. Elias never asked her to, never expected it, but he noticed. One morning she found a pair of boots by her cot, worn but sturdy, her size. Found 'em in town, Elias said when she looked at him, confused. Figured you'd need 'em if you're gonna walk around. Clara held the boots like they were made of gold. I can't pay you back. Didn't ask you to. She blinked fast, swallowed the lump in her throat. Thank you. Elias just nodded and walked outside. The nightmares came every night. Clara would wake gasping, drenched in sweat, clawing at invisible ropes. The sack, the darkness, the hands. The first time it happened, Elias woke too. He didn't touch her, didn't crowd her. He just sat up, lit the lantern and stayed awake until her breathing slowed. The second time he made tea. Bitter, strong but warm. The third time he spoke. I was in the war, he said quietly. Saw things no man should see. Did things I ain't proud of. Clara looked at him through tear-streaked eyes. For years after, I couldn't sleep, he continued. Every time I closed my eyes, I was back there, in the mud, in the blood. He stared into the fire. Took a long time before the nightmares stopped, and some nights, they still come back. Clara's voice was barely a whisper. How did you survive it? Elias glanced at her. I didn't try to forget, I just learned to live with it. Silence settled between them, not uncomfortable, just honest. You'll get through this, Elias said. Won't be easy, won't be fast, but you will. Clara nodded. She wanted to believe him. She was starting to. A week later, Clara ventured outside for the first time. The air was cold, crisp. It bit at her cheeks, but it felt real, alive. The sky stretched above her, endless and blue. She had forgotten how big the world was, how much space existed beyond walls and darkness. Elias was repairing the fence near the barn. He looked up when he heard her footsteps. "Mornin'," he said. "Morning," she replied. She stood there awkwardly, unsure what to do with her hands. Elias held out a hammer. "Want to help?" Clara hesitated, then took it. They worked in silence. He showed her how to drive nails straight, how to brace the posts. She was clumsy at first, missed more than she hit, but he didn't laugh, didn't scold. He just handed her another nail. By midday, her palms were blistered, her shoulders aching, but she felt something she hadn't felt in months. Useful. "You're stronger than you think," Elias said as they packed up the tools. Clara looked down at her hands, raw, red, but hers. "I don't feel strong," she admitted. "Strength ain't about how you feel," Elias said. "It's about what you do anyway." She met his eyes. Something passed between them. Understanding, maybe, or respect. "Thank you," Clara said. "For everything." Elias shrugged. "Ain't done nothing special. You saved my life." He paused, looked at her fully. "You're the one still fightin'. I just gave you a place to do it." Clara's chest tightened. No one had ever spoken to her like that before, like she mattered, like she was more than what had been done to her. "I'll pay you back," she said firmly, somehow. Elias smiled. "Just a little." "You already are." That evening Clara made dinner. It wasn't much, beans and cornbread, but it was edible. Elias ate every bite without complaint. "Tastes good," he said. Clara raised an eyebrow. "You're a terrible liar." He chuckled. A low rumbling sound she hadn't heard before. "Maybe, but it's still better than my cookin'." She smiled. A real smile, small but real. They ate in comfortable silence. The fire crackled. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees. For the first time since the sack, Clara felt almost normal. Almost. As they cleared the dishes, Clara paused. "Can I ask you something?" Elias nodded. "Why do you live out here alone?" He was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Had a family once, wife. Little girl." Clara's breath caught. "What happened?" "Fever took 'em both, same winter. Buried him under the oak tree out back." His voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed the grief that never truly left. "After that, couldn't stand being around people. Their pity, their questions. So I came here." Clara understood. Sometimes loneliness wasn't a curse. It was protection. "I'm sorry," she said softly. Elias met her gaze. "Me too. But life goes on. Has to. But the past has a way of finding you." 2 days later, a rider came to the valley. Clara saw him first, a stranger on a dark horse moving slow along the ridge. Her blood turned to ice. "Elias," she whispered, voice shaking. He was outside, sharpening tools. He looked up, followed her gaze. The rider stopped at the edge of the property. Watched. Didn't approach. Elias set down the whetstone, stood slowly. His hand drifted toward the rifle leaning against the porch rail. "Stay inside," he said quietly. Clara's heart pounded. What if it's them? "Then I'll handle it." "Elias." "Inside. Now." She obeyed, but she watched through the window, hands trembling. The rider sat there for a long moment. Then, without a word, turned his horse and rode away. But the message was clear. They knew where she was. That night, Elias bolted the door, loaded every rifle, checked every window. Clara sat by the fire, knees pulled to her chest. "They're coming, aren't they?" she asked. Elias didn't lie. "Probably." "You should let me go. It's not your fight." He turned, eyes hard. "You think I'm gonna hand you over to those bastards? I don't want you to die because of me." Elias crossed the room, knelt in front of her, looked her straight in the eye. "Listen to me," he said. "I've lived alone a long time, long enough to know what matters and what don't, and you matter." Clara's breath hitched. "Why?" "Because you didn't give up. Because you fought your way out of that sack. Because you're still here, still breathin', still tryin'. He stood. So no, I ain't letting you go, and I sure as hell ain't letting them take you. Tears streamed down Clara's face. I don't know how to fight them. You don't have to, Elias said. That's what I'm here for. She looked up at him. This quiet, gruff man who asked for nothing and gave everything. Thank you, she whispered. Elias nodded. Get some rest. Tomorrow we prepare. Clara lay down that night, but she didn't sleep. Because she knew the storm was coming, and this time she wouldn't face it in a sack. This time she'd face it standing, beside a man who refused to let her fall. The town was 3 miles south, close enough to reach, far enough to avoid. Elias rode in alone at dawn. Clara had wanted to come, but he refused. You stay here, door locked, rifle loaded. Anyone comes who ain't me, you shoot first and ask questions later. She gave a short nod, fear tight in her throat. Elias's horse kicked up dust as he rode down the valley trail. The morning air was cool, but his gut churned hot with unease. He needed answers, needed to know who was looking for her, and how many. The town of Bitter Creek was small. One main street, a general store, a saloon that doubled as a boarding house, a church that nobody attended except for funerals. Elias tied his horse outside the store and stepped inside. The clerk, a wiry man named Polk, looked up from his ledger. Turner, Polk said, surprised. Ain't seen you in weeks. Been busy. Polk leaned on the counter. Heard you took in a stray. Elias's jaw tightened. Where'd you hear that? Ryder came through 2 days ago. Asking questions, said he was looking for a girl. Young, dark hair, green eyes. Elias kept his face blank. What'd you tell him? Nothing. Ain't my business. Polk hesitated. But others talked, said they seen smoke from your place. Figured you might have company. Elias cursed under his breath. Small towns. Everyone knew everything. Who was the rider? Elias asked. Polk shrugged. Didn't give a name, but he weren't alone. Had 2 others with him, rough-looking types. The kind you don't ask questions. Elias felt the weight of his pistol against his hip. They still in town? Left yesterday. But they'll be back. Elias inclined his head. Thanks, Polk. Turner, Polk called as Elias turned to leave. That girl, whatever she's running from, you sure you want to get in the middle of it? Elias looked back. Already am. He stopped at the saloon next. Not for whiskey, for information. The bartender, a grizzled man named Cobb, was wiping glasses when Elias walked in. Turner, Cobb said, surprised. You drinking or just looking for trouble? Information. Cobb set down the glass. About. The men who came through, the ones asking about a girl. Cobb's expression darkened. You don't want to mess with them. Too late. Cobb sighed, leaned in close. They're part of a gang, run by a man named Voss, deals in cargo, human cargo. Elias's blood ran cold. Traffickers. Cobb agreed without words. Worst kind, snatch girls off stagecoaches, sell them to miners, ranchers, anyone with coin. Law don't care much, too many pockets lined. How many men does Voss have? 6. Maybe more. They move fast. Hit hard, don't leave witnesses. Elias's hand tightened on his belt. Where do they operate? Anywhere they want. But word is they got a camp east of here. Old mining outpost. Abandoned. Elias committed it to memory. Thanks, Cobb. Turner, Cobb said as Elias turned to leave. You got a death wish? Elias paused. No, just a promise to keep. He rode back in silence. But one thought haunted him. Voss didn't just want Clara back. He wanted to make an example of her. When Elias returned to the cabin, Clara was waiting by the window, weapon in her lap. She stood when she saw him. Relief flooded her face. You're back. Told you I would be. She set the gun down. What did you find out? Elias closed the door, locked it, then told her everything. Clara's face went pale. Voss. Elias frowned. You know him? She gave a shaky nod, trembling. He's the one who took me. The one who runs the whole operation. Her voice cracked. He said I was his best investment, that I'd fetch a high price. Elias's fists clenched. How many men does he have with him? At least 5. Maybe more. They're armed. Dangerous. They don't stop until they get what they want. Then we make sure they don't get it. Clara looked at him, eyes wide. Elias, you can't fight them all. I can try. You'll die. Maybe, he said. But I ain't letting them take you. Clara's breath hitched. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Why are you doing this? You don't owe me anything. Elias stepped closer. Because I know what it's like to lose everything, and I'll be damned if I let it happen to you. She stared at him. This man who had saved her without asking for anything in return. This man who was willing to die for her. I don't want you to get hurt, she whispered. Too late, Elias said softly. Already care too much. They spent the rest of the day preparing. Elias tore planks from the barn and nailed them across the windows. Each strike of the hammer felt like a countdown. Clara stacked firewood against the walls. Her hands shook, but she didn't stop. Is this enough? She asked. Elias tested the barricade. It'll slow him down. He loaded every weapon, 2 rifles, 1 shotgun, 3 pistols, a hunting knife stained with old blood. Clara watched him work. You've done this before. Different enemy, he said. Same fear. By nightfall the cabin looked like a fortress. But they both knew fortresses could fall. Elias stood on the porch scanning the valley. The sun dipped below the ridge, painting the sky in shades of blood and gold. Clara joined him, wrapped in a blanket, silent. You ever shot a gun? Elias asked. Once, my father taught me, before he died. Elias handed her a pistol, smaller, easier to handle. If they get past me, he said, you aim for the chest. Don't hesitate. Don't think. Just pull the trigger. Clara took it. The metal felt heavy. Foreign. I don't know if I can, she admitted. You can, Elias said. When it matters, you will. She looked at him. How do you know? Because you're still here, still fightin'. That takes more courage than pulling a trigger. Clara's eyes burned with unshed tears. What if we don't make it? Elias turned to her. Then we go down swingin'. That night they didn't sleep. They sat by the fire, weapons within reach, listening to every sound. The wind howled, branches scraped against the roof. An owl hooted in the distance. Every noise set Clara's heart racing, but Elias stayed calm, alert, ready. Tell me something, Clara said quietly. Something good. Elias glanced at her. Like what? Anything. I just need to hear something other than fear. Elias was quiet for a moment. Then my daughter used to love fireflies. Every summer she'd chase him around the yard, try to catch him in jars. He smiled faintly. She never could. They'd always slip away. But she never stopped trying. Clara listened, heart aching. What was her name? Emma. She sounds beautiful. She was. The stillness stretched between them. Not uncomfortable, just heavy with things unsaid. I'm sorry you lost her, Clara whispered. Elias stared into the flames. Me too. A long pause. Then softer. I think she'd like you. Clara looked at him, surprised. Why? Because you don't give up. He met her eyes, just like her. Clara's throat tightened. I wish I could have met her. You remind me of her, Elias said. Stubborn, brave, won't quit. And that's exactly why he couldn't let Clara die. Not again. The dogs had gone quiet. Too quiet. Elias's hand tightened on the Winchester, his jaw clenched. He moved toward the window, staying low, scanning the darkness beyond the trees. They were already here. Just after midnight the silence shattered. The dogs erupted in frantic barking, their voices sharp with warning. Elias shot to his feet, grabbing his weapon. His heart pounded against his ribs like a war drum. Stay low, he said, voice tight. Clara crouched by the window, pistol gripped in both hands. Her breath came fast and shallow. Outside, shadows moved through the trees like ghosts. 1, 2, 3, maybe more. Then a voice cut through the night. Rough, mocking, familiar. Clara, we know you're in there. Her blood froze. Voss. Come on out, darling, Voss continued, his voice dripping with false kindness. Make this easy. Nobody has to get hurt. Elias didn't answer. He moved to the door, every muscle coiled tight. He cocked the Winchester. The metallic click echoed like thunder in the stillness. "Last chance," Voss shouted. "You got 10 seconds, Turner. Then we burn you out." Elias looked back at Clara. Her face was pale, tears streaming down her cheeks, but her hand stayed steady on the pistol. "No matter what happens," he said quietly, "you stay inside. Understand?" She gave a shaky nod, unable to speak. Elias took a breath. Then he stepped onto the porch, weapon raised, silhouette framed against the firelight behind him. And the night exploded. The first shot rang out like thunder splitting the sky, and Elias dove behind the porch rail as splinters exploded from the wood beside his head. Muzzle flashes lit the darkness like deadly fireflies as Voss's voice boomed through the chaos. "Turner, give us the girl and walk away." Elias answered with his Winchester, and somewhere in the darkness a man screamed. "One down," he muttered, levering another round into the chamber. Inside, Clara pressed herself against the wall, her heart hammering as she watched shadows circle the cabin through the boarded window. Glass shattered as a bottle sailed through the gap, trailing flame. Kerosene spread across the floor in a deadly pool. "Clara!" Elias shouted over the gunfire. "The blankets! Smother it before it spreads." She moved without thinking, beating at the flames with wool blankets as smoke filled her lungs. More gunfire erupted outside, Elias's rifle barking again and again, but there were too many of them. A bullet shattered the lantern beside her head, and oil splashed across her dress. Through the smoke, she saw a bearded man creeping around the cabin's corner. "Behind you!" she screamed. Elias spun as the stranger raised his pistol, but Clara was already firing through the window gap. The man stumbled backward, clutching his shoulder. "Good shot," Elias called, but his voice was strained now, and Clara saw the dark stain spreading across his shirt. "You're hit." "Just a graze," he lied, but she could see how he favored his left arm as the assault intensified around them. The cabin was becoming an inferno, flames licking at the roof beams. "We can't stay here," Clara said, coughing through the thickening smoke. "The root cellar," Elias said, reloading with shaking hands. "Behind the kitchen, there's a tunnel that comes out by the creek." Another volley of shots drove them both to the floor as bullets whined overhead. "Go," Elias said. "I'll hold them here. I'm not leaving you." "Clara." "No." Her voice was fierce, final. "We go together or not at all." Their eyes met through the smoke and chaos, and something passed between them. Trust, maybe something deeper. "Together then," Elias said. They moved as one, Elias laying down covering fire while Clara pulled up the hidden trapdoor in the kitchen floor. The tunnel was narrow, carved from dirt and desperation during the war. "Ladies first," Elias said, trying to smile despite the blood painting his shirt. Clara dropped into the darkness without hesitation, and Elias followed, pulling the door shut just as the roof began to collapse above them in a shower of sparks. The tunnel was a nightmare of close walls and suffocating air. Clara crawled forward on hands and knees while behind her. Elias moved slower, his breathing labored and wet. "Keep going," he gasped when she paused. "Don't stop." Finally she saw starlight ahead and burst from the hidden exit, gulping clean air. Elias emerged behind her, pale and shaking, blood soaking through his shirt. "We need to stop the bleeding," she said, but even as she spoke they heard angry shouts from the direction of the burning cabin. "There!" someone yelled. "The tunnel!" They stumbled through the creek, water shocking cold against their legs, Clara supporting Elias as his strength failed. Behind them, torches appeared at the tunnel mouth. The old mining camp materialized out of the darkness like a ghost town, and there on the highest hill stood the watchtower. "There," Clara breathed. "We can see them coming from up there." They climbed the rickety ladder, Elias's blood leaving a trail on the wooden rungs until they reached the platform at the top. Clara settled him against the railing, then picked up his rifle. Her hands steady now. 6 shots, she said. "How many of them are left?" 4, maybe 5. Below them torches moved through the trees as Voss's voice echoed off the canyon walls. "Clara, come down now and I might let your friend live." Clara didn't answer. Instead, she raised the rifle and waited. When the first man started climbing the tower, she let him get halfway up before she fired. He screamed and fell backward into the rocks below. 4 left, she said quietly. But something fundamental had changed in that tunnel, in the darkness and desperation. Clara was no longer just running away from her past. She was running towards something, toward a life where she didn't have to be afraid anymore. And she'd be damned if she'd let anyone take that away from her. Not even Voss. Time crawled by as Clara kept watch from the tower. One by one, Voss's remaining men tried to reach them. Clara drove them back with precise shots, never killing unless she had to. Elias watched in amazement. This wasn't the broken girl he'd found in a sack. This was a woman who'd found her strength in hell and brought it back like forged steel. "Where'd you learn to shoot like that?" he asked weakly. "My father." Clara worked a lever. "He said a woman needed to protect herself." Another shadow moved below. Clara tracked him until he stepped into moonlight. She fired once. The man cried out, stumbled away clutching his leg. "3 left," she murmured. By dawn only Voss remained. The sun painted the sky gold and crimson as he stepped into the open, hands raised in apparent surrender, but Clara didn't trust it. "Enough," he shouted. "You win. I'm done." Clara kept the rifle trained on his chest. "Throw down your weapons." Voss slowly reached for his pistol as if preparing to drop it, but instead he spun toward the tower with lightning speed, bringing the gun up fast. Clara was faster. The rifle cracked once. Voss jerked backward, his shot going wild. He hit the ground hard and didn't move. Silence fell over the camp like a burial shroud. Clara lowered the rifle, hands trembling now that it was over. "Is he?" Elias pulled himself up to see. "Dead. It's finished, Clara. You're free." Tears streamed down her face. Not sorrow. Relief. Joy. A future suddenly possible. "We need to get you to a doctor," she said, seeing how pale he'd become. Elias caught her hand, his grip weak, but determined. "Clara, before we go back, I need to tell you something." She waited, heart pounding with hope. "These past weeks," he said slowly, "watching you heal, watching you find your strength. It's been like watching the sun come up after the longest night." Clara's breath caught. "I know I ain't much," Elias continued. "Just an old soldier with too many ghosts. But if you'll have me, I'd like to spend whatever time I got left helping you chase away yours." Clara stared at him. This man who'd saved her from more than just a sack, who'd given her back her life, courage, hope. "Elias Turner," she said softly. "Are you asking me to marry you?" "I reckon I am." Clara leaned down and kissed him, soft, sweet, full of promise. "Then I reckon I'm saying yes." 6 months later. The cabin had been rebuilt, bigger and stronger. Clara stood on the porch watching Elias split wood. His shoulder had healed well, though scars remained. Neither would hers disappear completely, but scars weren't marks of damage. They were proof of survival. She touched the gold band on her finger. They'd married in the rebuilt cabin with Polk and Cobb as witnesses. No fancy dress, no flowers, just promises spoken before God and the mountains. It had been perfect. "Mrs. Turner," a voice called from the road. Clara looked up to see a wagon approaching. A young woman sat beside the driver, clothes torn, eyes wide with fear. Clara recognized immediately. Her heart clenched with painful memory. She'd worn that same look of desperate terror once upon a time. The driver climbed down with relief. "Found her wandering the road about 5 miles back. Says she escaped from bad men. Heard about what you folks did. Thought you might." Clara was already moving, walking toward the wagon with her hand extended. She understood now why God had allowed her to survive, why she'd been thrown away like refuse only to crawl back into the light. "What's your name, honey?" she asked gently. "Sarah," the girl whispered. "Sarah Mills." Clara smiled. The same smile Elias had given her that first night. Kind, understanding, safe. "Well, Sarah Mills," Clara said warmly, "how about some hot coffee and a place to rest? You look like you could use both." The girl's eyes filled with tears of relief, and she nodded wordlessly. As Clara helped her down, she caught Elias watching from across the yard. He nodded once, love and pride shining in his weathered eyes. They'd found their purpose together. Their calling, in this valley where Clara had once been dumped like garbage, they would build something beautiful. A place where broken souls could heal completely, where hope could take root and grow strong, where love could bloom eternal in the ashes of what was lost. The wind whispered through the pines, carrying the scent of fresh bread from Clara's kitchen, the sound of Sarah's tentative laughter as she began to feel safe again, and the promise of tomorrow stretching endlessly ahead like a golden road. Clara had been thrown away in a sack, left to die in darkness like something worthless. But she'd crawled out into the light with determination and grace. and now she'd spend her life helping others do the same, one broken soul at a time, one rescued heart after another. Because the strongest people are forged in the darkest places, and the greatest love stories begin with simple acts of kindness that echo through eternity. And the end. If this story of survival, courage, and unexpected love touched your heart, don't forget to like and subscribe to Wild West Untold Love for more tales of redemption on the frontier. And if a moment or a feeling in this story stayed with you, we'd love to hear it in the comments below. Because sometimes the strongest souls are forged in the darkest places, and the greatest love stories begin with the simplest act of kindness.